Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Well, hello there, DFW Soccer Curious. Welcome to another episode of Third Degree, the podcast. There he is. Dan Crooke. Howdy, Dan.
Hey, how's it going? What's been happening this past week?
Oh my God, what's happened to you?
Luton's like nearly in the playoffs. All we have to do is pray for a miracle, and it's there. So life's gone crazy and exciting, and yeah, caffeine.
Okay, well, this bodes well for the episode. There's your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, editor, founder, thirddegree.net, and the original soccer influencer himself, Buzz Carrick. Come in Pacific Northwest.
Hey, exciting episode number 360 today. We've now gone in a complete circle back to the beginning. And also, why is Dan wearing an El Salvador shirt?
Because it was cheap.
Okay.
$25 at Berlin. Can't knock that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Dig it. Well, boys, I hate to report that since we last talked, Football Club Dallas has played 2 games and lost 2 games. And the team has not won since that 4-0 win over DC quite some time ago. It's not a strong run for the team, Buzz, and I'm sure you probably want to start with the loss to Minnesota at home, or would you like to just kick off the game you actually attended in person in the death trap that is known as Lumen Field?
Well, I think we can certainly talk about the contrast between them. The Minnesota game was probably Dallas's attempt to play the best team they can pretty much these days. And then the Seattle game was an attempt to sort of rotate, particularly once Farrington and Musa both came up with some sort of issue. So, you can't really lump the 2 games in together in terms of an analysis because they had such different lineups, such different groupings of players. The only way to really lump them in together is that Dallas didn't look very good in either one, and they lost both those games. And it really is amazing how far the team has come since that win against DC when they looked so good. But when they play a team that can hold the ball and pass the ball around, they really just are out of luck. So they really struggle to get the ball and get anything going unless they can get the other team to make some turnovers. And that didn't really happen in one of these games.
It is pretty reflective of just kind of the quality of the team that you play. Seattle and Minnesota are clearly superior teams to DC, and I think that's something we talked about on the heels of such a dominating performance against DC was everybody hold on to your excitement pants because it is DC after all, and I think these 2 games kind of revealed that to us more clearly. How about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, DC in particular is susceptible to the way Dallas plays in that DC is not very good at passing out of the back, and Dallas can take advantage of that when teams aren't good at that. But Seattle's really good at that, and apparently so is Minnesota. One of the things I was surprised by Minnesota is that they actually, probably because they were leading, they let Dallas have a lot of the possession. And Minnesota basically played a low block. They basically did to Dallas what Dallas tries to do to other teams is they sit back and then, effectively countered. So neither one of those things worked very well for Dallas. I mean, neither one of those games allowed them to do what they would want to do. One, because the other team didn't want the ball, the Minnesota game, and the second one because Seattle is really good with the ball and kept the ball away. Even though Seattle rotated, the people they bring in are still very talented. So, it's not a good stretch for FC Dallas. They're from a period of maybe a month ago when we felt like they were making some slow progression and they were improving. They've now gone to a period where since that DC game, they've plateaued and become stagnant, and they're not getting any better. They're not having more success. And so it's worrisome about the direction they're going.
Dan, I think what's your take on all of this? Let's go there first.
Kind of like Buzz said, ran into 2 good teams. I think you could even go back to the Galaxy game and say, how many people really expected the performance that they even put in there? I think Seattle was not a horrible performance by any stretch of the imagination, especially with the lineup that they rolled out, resting a few players. the absence of Musa and Farrington. But we're definitely seeing the table get to that point where there is a leading pack, some dudes, which includes FC Dallas and some other teams that aren't going to feature in the playoffs. So as long as they stay the upper end of that chasing pack, then it's kind of what we've been talking about since preseason.
Yeah, my observation is that I think this team is going to be fine over the course of the season, but fine means kind of maintaining its status quo over the last several seasons, which is, hanging out somewhere near the Mendoza line of playoffs or not. I don't think this team is or is even close to being a real contender. And I was mentioning, somebody was talking about how they love the Quill's cringy dog mentality. And I said, you know what? That kind of attitude and resiliency is great to have in a team, but it's almost kind of like table stakes for a team to be good. You got to be resilient. You got to have that kind of attitude to you. But if it's your only thing, it's not going to win you much. And I kind of feel like that's the thing with this club right now, Buzz, is it might be willing to fight and be dogs.
Yeah.
But it's just not a very good soccer team.
No, and in the Minnesota game, for example, there was again some talk about not coming out with the right sort of mentality, but that game they fell prey to one of the things that we've talked about for a few years now with this team. They outshot Minnesota 15-5, right? You'd be like, oh, that's awesome. Well, 2 shots on target by FC Dallas.
Yeah,
right?
Do you know over the course of these 2 games, their collective open play XG is 1.3?
Yeah. So the
2 games
are bad in different ways. The Minnesota game, 15 shots at home, we usually would count that as a good target. That's what you want. But the 2 on target is bad. Remember, always we talk about this: 50% on target from FC Dallas, and they're more than likely going to win the game. Right? 2 out of 15, that's not going to cut it. So that's not getting it done against Minnesota. And then you look at the Seattle game, and they had 9. Which team am I looking at? Okay, they had 12 shots on target, out shooting Seattle 12-9, 6 on target. Oh, great. That's the 50% we talk about, right? We like that. Well, this is a different problem Dallas has had in the past. Only 4 of the shots came from cleanly inside the box. There's 1 right on the line, but most of the shots, the other 8 shots, are all on the line or outside the box. Well, that's not what we want, right? Granted, Seattle game, you don't have Musa and Farrington, so that's probably a big part of that. But when this team, again, is, yes, they got more shots on target, but these are not great scoring opportunities. They have an XG of 0.6, just to show you, compared to the 1.8 for Seattle, who had less shots overall, but the same number on target, right? The quality of the chances also matter. So again, these are 2 things that this club occasionally has fallen prey to over the last couple of years, and they both raised their head in both of these games. So these games have deficiencies in different ways, but in both cases are deficiencies. And when you play teams that are better, these deficiencies can cost you, and you can lose games. And this is what this team is. This team's not a good enough team to be deficient in some major way and win. They need to be on to win, right? This is what this team is, which is fine. It's better than last year, right? I think.
Well,
so.
I mean, there was a period of earlier in the season where in 6 games they scored 14 goals. So it's it's not like it's something the team isn't capable of. I just think the teams have figured them out a little bit, and they've slowed down a little bit, and there's a lot of other complicating factors. I think probably what makes sense is to kind of go through the games individually, because they were both losses, but losses in very different ways.
Right.
Especially because something you mentioned in the beginning, which was the significant difference between the 2 games is the lineups. So in Minnesota, he rolls out a very attacking lineup that includes Santiago Moreno for his first start of the season. And also, obviously, Musa's on there. But now he sits Farrington, but he also starts Valiente with a midfield, an addition to Kappas and Kaique and Johansson. And to your point, Buzz, this is probably the most attacking lineup they've got at his disposal, and not a lot came out of it.
The defense is what at this point pretty much you'd expect to be your best defense, minus perhaps left wing back. But you had Johansson and Moore both out there on the wings. You had Norris, Ibiaga, and Urigide. Those are the guys you would expect sort of to be starting these days since Bernie's hurt. Farrington for Moreno is pretty commonly what we think might be most often the choice, but certainly Farrington is very good and can play any given game. So, I mean, honestly, this is about as best of 11 as you can run. You have your questions about like, does Quill like Moreno? Ramiro or not? But Kayik played great in that game, so that's not, you can't complain about that. It's just a case of not getting enough opportunities cleanly on goal against Minnesota. And part of that too is you can accept that, okay, Moreno's first start, working with Valencia, working with Musa, like still figuring all out with those guys. Like he's played 30 minutes with them prior to that. So it's not shocking that maybe it's not all flowing perfectly. This is part of the growing pains of getting a DP in there and getting them to be effective, And I think if you look at Moreno specifically, as you go to the Seattle game, you'll see some changes happening with him. And so I think that you can't, some of these things are just going to happen as you try and bring in another expensive player, high profile player that's going to be starting probably more than likely. And you figure out exactly how to use them.
More about the Minnesota game, Valiente, who's somebody I think we've all kind of wanted to see out in that position more, Buzz, because it's kind of an attacking guy that the team clearly has needed. He very clearly has an engine, and he's got a lot of effort in him. I'm still not convinced he's particularly MLS starting quality. His passing isn't consistent. He's produced very little in terms of, expected assists and goals, and we just haven't seen a lot out of him yet.
He's a little bit inconsistent. There's been some games where we find like, we're starting to see some control, and like he passed in that game at a 78%, which out of like a playmaking kind of player is pretty nice. But then you look at any of the game breaking kind of thing, like the touches in the opposition box were only 3. Passes in the final third was only 4. They just didn't penetrate enough. He was only 1 for 5 on crosses and 1 for 3 on long balls. When he keeps it simple and keeps the ball moving quickly, I think he can be effective, like we saw a couple of games ago. But when he's trying to do too much, I think it doesn't come together. He is a little, still 25 years old. He's approaching the prime of his career, so he's not going to get crazy better, other than just sort of learning how to play with this group and continuing to develop. He was in here a little late in terms of coming in and joining the team, but by now I think he'd be on the same page. So we may just be, he's not a DP level game breaking 10. He's a guy that was sort of a mid-level 10, and maybe it's going to be that he's not going to be the answer going forward now there's a new DP in town.
Are you feeling like, is that a deal where it's a one or the other thing in terms of starting between Moreno and Valiente?
Well, Quill basically has, given that he's locked into a back 3, which basically means he's going to have 4 across the midfield, 2 wing backs and then 2 double pivot. So he basically has 3 positions left, and he has 4 players that you might like to see. It's for those 3 spots. Musa, Farrington, now Moreno. That's 3. Mm-hmm. So is Valiente going to outplay one of those guys? Or Delgado's 5 guys for going for those spots? So like you get to a point where there's just like someone has to be sacrificed to keep Musa, Farrington, and Moreno on the field. And so is it 1-to-1 Moreno versus Valiente or Valiente versus Farrington? Or no? Like any given game, you could see the 2 10s or you could see the 2 strikers, or other kinds of variations perhaps. But, Quill does have 4 pretty decent players for that front spot. And if you're going to look at the values of one or any of them together in terms of what they get paid and the amount of scoring they do, remember, at the end of the day, it's about scoring, and particularly with this team who's trying to outscore you. Mm-hmm. So, you got to look at the effectiveness of Musa and Farrington, the way that the chaos they create for each other. And this team still is at its best when those 2 guys are playing together. So is it just Moreno versus Valiente then? Or is Quill thinking of like, man, I'm going to have to sacrifice Farrington to get Moreno on and keep Valiente? I don't know. Those are some tough calls. So far, I would say that you really need to keep Farrington and Musa on there together. It doesn't look real good when those guys aren't out there, which worries you in terms of whatever might happen in the second half of the year. But, we're approaching a point, I think, where he's going to have to make a call about, okay, I got to have those 2 guys, and maybe Moreno's got to play that 10, and Valiente is going to have to sit. And if you have Moreno as that 10, quote unquote, both Farrington and Musa like to check back, and they like to move and like to create chaos, and so does Moreno. So those three guys, I think, would be interchanging a lot. I don't think anybody would be labeled as you're the 10, you're going to sit in zone 14 and just sit there. Like, it's not, none of those guys are that kind of player, you know. So you would end up with a very fluid, very mobile, very active front three. That's actually kind of exciting, you know, although it would put a really heavy load on your three guys that are in the double pivot, Kappas, Kaique, and Ramiro. Of which of those guys now can you look to help pass and build and link play, you know, or we can look at a team that's just going to start bypassing the midfield completely, which is entirely possible.
Yeah. But going back to the Minnesota game, and with this lineup, where in particular do you think it fell apart?
Well, you know, not having Farrington on there for the Minnesota game hurts. Although Farrington hadn't played very well in a couple of games, that was why we suggested Moreno should play. Moreno didn't do really great in that game. You know, he only had.
Has Moreno done great yet?
Yeah, the Seattle game. If you want to talk about those numbers, I will. But he actually did really good in the Seattle game. I know you won't believe me, but I'll read them for you and you'll see.
Okay.
Against Minnesota, he only had 37 touches. So really, like, once Minnesota went into like their block, it just became really difficult to break them down. And just that's why a lot of Dallas' shots are from outside the box. That's what Dallas does to other people, right? They put 7 guys back and they make you shoot from range. So they just did to them what Dallas does to other people. It was just a difficult game to break down and get good quality opportunities, hence the low XG, hence the low shots on target, hence the shots from range. This team, we've talked about it for a couple of years too. They're not really good about breaking down a block, right? Not really what they do. So,
right.
You know, lots of things in this game conspired against them. And Moreno was not particularly good in that game against Minnesota, certainly compared to what he did in Seattle, which was much, much better.
Dan, any thoughts about the Minnesota game you'd like to share?
I think just for the heavy attacking lineup they put out, they didn't get out of the blocks like they normally do. Minnesota gets not early goal, but relatively early, and then they shut up shop as best they could. They did what Minnesota's done historically against FC Dallas, clog up the middle and just make it a little bit ugly.
It dawns on me that because it wasn't in the notes, we did not get into the karate kick and the lack of the red card that wasn't called in the Minnesota game. And I look, I think this is the beef with the whole VAR setup, which is you can understand how a center referee misses something, but then that's why you have VAR to miss what is apparently a clear and obvious error. I mean, I don't know how you look at that and don't go, isn't that a red card? But Dan, you're going to tell me somebody gave you a different of opinion?
Yeah. I've been talking to a couple of people, trying to get a call together with Pro to kind of get the understanding of this. But
well, hold on before you go to that. Hold on before you do that, Buzz. Do you think that was a red card?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah, Dan, do you think it was a red card?
I think common sense says it's a red card.
Okay, now
I don't always think officiating is common sense.
Yeah, I agree. 100% Law 18. Go ahead.
So when they're analyzing the decision, there are a ton of considerations that they need to put into place. Direction of travel, right? Both players are running side by side. Markinich, his eyes are on the ball when he jumps, because they're not running at each other. They take into account how forceful it wasn't particularly. One of the things I never really thought of was the position of the legs. So the fact that his legs are bent, not locked, takes a lot of the force out of it. The fact that his other foot is not planted, it's off the ground, that in itself absorbs a lot of the force. So they have these little gray areas, and once they get into gray areas and they can't, I think the classic example is Dogso, where it's like, there's 3 to 5 considerations.
Yes.
If it doesn't meet all 5, it ain't Dogso. And in this case, they're effectively told, if you're in the middle, round down. So round towards the yellow rather than the red, which Alan Chapman cannot see that. He is directly behind Markinich's body, so he's relying on his linesman. His linesman's obviously not giving him a ton of information there. But the VAR is going to be looking at that, saying, okay, well, the foot struck the shoulder, so it might be reckless, but it's not a great risk of an injury where I think the example that was brought up in the Discord was Maxi Arruti when he had the bicycle kick on Aikapara and give him a concussion, where that was, okay, force-wise, he's trying to kick a soccer ball. He's trying to put some force behind it, and he catches the guy in the head, and he's like out cold on the floor as opposed to rolling around grabbing his shoulder. So, yeah, when they talk about serious foul play, something that endangers the safety of the opponent or uses excessive force or brutality, things like that, the lack of a secondary motion, I think the Santi Moreno one had a secondary motion. They were running at each other. He was kind of like 10-yard run, puts his foot up for the ball, immediately retracts it and catches the guy in the body. So they're looking at like that kind of secondary motion. Or was it intentional? Was it dangerous in itself? No, he was pulling his foot away. With Markinic, it was just foot was kind of planted in the shoulder and then it was away. So there's no like, not retaliation, but like a follow through.
And so the conclusion of all of that is what? That's a lot of noise.
Yeah, exactly that. There's a lot of noise, and because of that noise, they feel that it's not as clear cut as maybe.
What did Chapman call it on? Did Chapman just run over and give a yellow because he didn't see it, or did he not give anything? I don't remember how this went down.
He gave the yellow, so it might have been the linesman in his ear who had a better view, but
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I understand there's a whole process of check marks and figuring it out from the VAR point of view, but my feeling about this is when these situations happen is the incident we just watched one of those deals where if it's happening to your team, you're like, that's a red card. But if you're on the other team, you're like, no, there's no way that's a red card. Or is this one of those deals where the one team goes, that's a red card, and the other team goes, thank God they didn't catch it because that was that's what that felt like to me.
The way I was looking at it is I thought the Moreno one was worse because he is running straight at the guy.
Oh,
he
fair
has
enough.
Eyes on the guy, and its foot head height makes connection, forces a concussion test. To me, that was a lot worse than guy catches guy on shoulder. There's a lot of angry rolling around.
Okay, so should we celebrate consistency?
I mean, for his faults, Alan Chapman was very consistent in that game. He let a lot go, which I'm happy to see. You can be good, you can be crap, but if you're consistently crap, then all right, okay. Great, we've got a soccer game.
Okay.
My problem with that call was that if that's a slide tackle, that's a red card because your cleats first into his ankle. So like the fact that you jumped up in the air and made it a dangerous play on top of being a cleats first impact means it's a red card.
I do. I mean, we obviously go through this with handball offside. I do kind of miss when it was a very clear cut. Yeah. If your studs are showing, you're off.
Right. I mean, it goes back to the idea that like you don't have to hit somebody for it to be a punch. Right. So if your cleats are going at somebody's chest, it doesn't matter how hard you hit them. You went cleats first into somebody's chest or ankle or whatever, and it's a red card. You can't stud first tackle. So you can't jump up at somebody's studs first, even if they weren't there when you jumped.
But that's it. We're kind of getting into the issue isn't with the referee, it's with the laws of the game.
Well, it's always, that's always how it is. It's the grayness of all the way the rules are written provide all sorts of opportunities. I just remember it didn't feel that long ago where the kind of rule of thumb was you're ultimately responsible for your body parts and where they end up. And to me, that felt like that, but I don't know. Anyway, I just thought it was worth having a discussion. You may want to chop that in earlier in the episode. So
I think that's insight that we can offer because of contacts that we have that no one else in this market can offer. So that is a worthwhile discussion.
Yeah, and I also think that is now a run of a few games where Dallas probably feels a little bit hard done by on some weird decisions. The offside call that didn't happen in the game. Was it the LA game? Yeah, I think it's the LA game.
And the Musa one.
So, they tend to go your way or not over the course of the season. I'm a big believer that they tend up evening out, but right now they're just kind of in a low referee decision biorhythm. So there you are. Now, obviously, at the end of the Minnesota game, everybody had their hearts thrown up into their throats when Musa goes down and grabs his knee, leaves the game, and ultimately ends up not making the trip. Neither does Logan, by the way, to the Seattle game. So before we move on and talk about the Seattle game and what all that looked like, do we know anything about the extent of the Musa situation? Because this is out of all the different Musa outcomes that you could calculate over the course of the next few months, this one wasn't one I had thought about yet. And this would easily be the worst, doomiest of all the outcomes if he's blown his knee out and isn't available for either Dallas or Croatia and unsellable.
Well, Peter, nothing to worry about. It's just a lower body injury. So nothing. He's fine.
Just the minor lower body injury, just the super vague lower body injury, right?
Hangnail, ingrown toenail.
That's the same thing they report for hemorrhoids.
Yeah, well, the word I got was that it's not bad, and that he was jovial and fine the next day. So I'm going to take all that as a not serious, and hopefully it's just a little, since they were going up there and playing on the grass turf combo.
Okay.
Get on a plane. We'll see.
How many times have we heard that before?
I know.
Let's start counting. Let us count the ways over the course of the last 10 years where we've heard it's not a big deal, and we don't see them again for a year.
Particularly under Quill, that's really the case. We get that all the time. Like, it's fine. And then it's like, he's out too much. Didn't
they say that about Julio Anderson?
Anderson Julio.
Anderson Julio.
Yeah. And Bernie too, I think. So yeah. But anyway, we got what we got. What we got is no big deal. He was in good spirits. Lower body injury. Okay.
FC Dallas curious specific to this episode. Just
Farrington too, no idea.
Act however you wish. Your mileage may vary. He may be back this weekend. He may be done for the season. So nobody knows.
I have also talked to a couple people that my theory was correct about, like Ricky Lewis and Alvaro or whatever being basically hidden in terms of being injured by a sign in North Texas. That apparently is right. So 2 more guys that are hurt and nobody knows what's wrong with them. And Kappas, I did also talk to somebody else that can confirm for me he's been fighting a knock. We were right about that. None of it's on the injury report. None of this. They may have an idea. So,
Kappas has been walking wounded. His knees will iced up immediately after every game.
Yeah, there you go. So, the fall off in his game is probably almost very clearly because of whatever it is he's fighting with that. It's just they're just super CIA secretive about all this stuff, and it's a shame because people are
clearly
yelling that guy
them
sucks,
on the field.
Get him out of the game. It's like. He's playing hurt. Well, they never
said that secretive. They left Musa as questionable when he was posting on social media from Plano.
No, he was.
While the team was in Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Saturday night, I look at my phone. I'm out. I don't get to watch the game live. And I'm out with my wife, and I look at my phone just to see what the lineup looks like. And I'm just going to be flat out honest. There's a dude in the lineup that I have to then Google because I can't remember who he is.
Which one is that?
And I was like, it's the draft pick. That's right. I forgot they drafted this guy, Simmonds. And that's right. I had also forgotten that he had kind of poked in the game late against Minnesota. I don't know what his sudden introduction into the squad is due to, Buzz. I don't know if you have any insight into that because I feel like he's just appeared out of the ether.
Injuries.
Is that all it is?
Yeah.
Has he been playing with North Texas?
He was until he started getting called up to the first team.
Okay.
But
has he done anything for Byrne Jr.?
Well, he's only 19, so he's a kid that came through a non-academy and went to college, and then did really, really well as a freshman. The league signed him in Dallas.
He's an old school American player.
Yeah, he is, except that he's not American. I mean, he is. He's from America, but he's also is it Jamaica eligible Jamaica? Yeah, Jamaica eligible. He is born in the United States, he's American, but he is eligible for another country. But the point is, he's a little raw because he came around the academy system, went into college. But people were really excited about him coming out of college. There's a lot of talk about him, and Dallas grabbed him. That's a great pick, actually. So for North Texas, you see what you saw in this game against Seattle. he looked way more confident in this game than he has before with the first team. But with the second team, he looks very confident. He hasn't been like scoring a goal a game or anything. That's Nys that's doing that. But, there's a whole lot of good stuff here that you see pieces of. The size, the physicality. He can play vertically. He can play back to goal. Big, intimidating. He moves well. He causes chaos in the other team like Farrington and Musa do. So, like, there's a lot to like in terms of, like, give it a few years and there's going to be a good player here. Like, right now, he's a little in over his head. I think you could see that against the Seattle game. I'm not going to say he played poorly. I thought he played okay, perfectly fine for the guy that's basically your third choice 9 at 19 years old. So there's some intriguing ideas there, some intriguing physicality there. It's just, Seattle's a good team and he wasn't able to crack them open, but I wasn't upset with how he played.
Yeah. Okay. What I was really, I didn't mean for you to get into that in that depth yet. I was just commenting on the fact that the starting 11 for the Seattle game was so bonkers B team.
Yeah.
I was afraid that one Casey Keller was going to accuse somebody of disrespect.
Yeah, it was disrespectful.
That is I mean, if I had told you in January that Dallas would go to Seattle with that lineup, you would have thought there had been some sort of, a flu bug going around or food poisoning or a plane crash or something.
Well, once you lose Musa and Farrington, then, like, our chances of winning, this is a coach speak, our chances of winning in Seattle probably went from 0.1001 to 0.000.
So that's the impetus for resting everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, you would have ordinarily, you'd say it's also turf. Now, right now, it's this grass turf mix for the World Cup, but they've won once there ever, and it's been 15 years since they've won there. It's like Dallas has the longest streak in the history of MLS not beating a team, and that team is Seattle, right? So, like, there's every reason in the world to be like, you know what, we'll just throw this one away. We'll play some kids. We'll see what happens. Seattle rotated too. Like, Morris, I think, got his first start of the year. Or maybe it's since earlier in the year, he looked really stiff, but they rotated a couple of guys in. They took advantage of it as well with their long injury list. So they're still better than Dallas every way. But
100%. I'm just going to sidetrack here. Buzz says grass turf hybrid. I don't want anybody to come away thinking that it's a turf surface in any way. It's the same kind of grass they use in most of the Premier League and European. It just happens to have in the base of it, there are some turf fibers to help the grass grow and keep and give it some stability. It's a grass surface.
Dallas actually uses that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's not 100% grass. There's other things happening in it. I didn't want to say it was grass.
98% grass, 2% turf. Yeah.
It's like plastic for that underpins the grass to grow to. So the same thing they put in FC Dallas in the summer a couple of years ago.
I just know if I would have said grass, somebody would have said it's not all grass. I mean, so I was trying to be polite.
Well, I got you the other way. So
you got me the other way. Yes, I know. It's a hybrid.
It does look good in there to have grass. That is quite crazy how good it is. And I will admit, straight up, this was the game that I have been dreading for over a year, which is the day Jesus Ferreira scores against his club. And it did happen when they, for some reason, left him standing wide open all by himself just outside the box to collect an easy pass and finish it, which just...
They were expecting him to be playing right back.
Something like that.
Well, and your midfield combo was glacially slow Marrero and 20-year-old Benjamin, so I just didn't go with him.
So I'm gonna be, again, this is a safe space, and I feel like I can be honest with you guys and not be judged. So I turn the game on when I get home from dinner, and I watch the first half, and I watch Dallas go down 2-1 and get very burned out on watching the misplay passes and turn the ball over and be under attack. And it's just kind of, and it got to be halftime, and I'm like, okay, I'm tired. And I turned the game off, and I went to bed, and I never bothered to go back and watch the second half. What did I miss, Buzzard?
Well, you missed out because they brought in some of the more startery kind of pieces and played a lot better. So Nolan Norris had a great game, and Santiago Moreno had a great game. So those are the pieces that you expected. And then,
see, I'm glad to hear that because I thought Moreno was really disappointing in the first half.
Well, he ended up with 57 touches, which is twice as much as the previous game. 80% passing for basically a striker at 10. It's amazing. 4 for 4 on dribbles, so going by people at 100% rate, right?
Okay.
Duels 7 for 9. right? Nice. 5 defensive contributions for a striker. That's amazing. 6 recoveries, also amazing. He had a good game. Dallas didn't win, but he played well.
Yeah, I also want to give him some grace because he's just joined the team and he's had to transfer from one hemisphere, southern to northern hemisphere, and all of the things that come along with that. I don't expect him to be balls out. There was a moment in the first half where he had a really nice dribble and run into the box, and I thought he had a really good opportunity to score, but then he just overcomplicated it too much and he blew the opportunity.
Yeah.
And there was a little bit of that too much in the first half where I thought he was overcomplicating things. And that, again, could just be a lack of familiarity.
And who he's out there with.
And especially the fact that he's playing with essentially Byrne Jr. out there.
Yeah, exactly. Consider he had 4 chances created. That's pretty good. That's like a key pass, right? 1 big chance, which is, basically what they call like that's a blown where they're like, you should have scored and didn't in this case. He only had 1 shot. Yeah, he only had 1 shot, but it was on target. So like, I'd like to see him get more opportunities himself, but he played good 2-way ball. He created, he probably had pretty close to the highest XG and XA of anybody on the team, I would imagine. I didn't look at it straight up, but overall it was definitely his best game, and it was significantly better than the one on Wednesday. So good progression.
So Dan, how do you feel about the decision to essentially mail the game in?
Could I just say something on Moreno quickly, because I keep coming back to the same thought every time I see him play. And granted, small sample size for FC Dallas. He's just not an instinctual player. It's like everything has an extra thought or two before the action, and I felt that really played out in Seattle. Second half, when he kind of got a little bit more comfortable, certainly felt more like he had a feel for the game. I don't have a problem with that lineup. They have a lot of games coming thick and fast. You've really got to do this reset. You've got your 2 home games after Red Bull before you go on that 9-game road trip plus the Leagues Cup games. I asked Quill after the Minnesota game, how does he feel? The home form's not been really what they needed for such a home-heavy first half of the season, and he gave the very mentality-based, playing away, it's the same as playing at home. And if you just play in, it's like, is it though? So to go into a place they haven't won in 15 years, since Breck Shea scored, and as the announcers like to point out, that Sasha Kljestan was just a baby at the time, and whoever the hell was awful doing play-by-play wasn't even a consideration. They weren't getting a result there. Your 2 arguably most important players so far this season out injured. Yeah, give people minutes, get people some reps, get some much needed rest for guys like Urugide, and save it for the winnable games, which that may be in Jersey, that may be just kind of get everyone back home in one piece and focus on the Real Salt Lake and Vancouver games, which also sound incredibly winnable. That was sarcasm, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say. I think we got some answers to some questions too, like why is Abubakar not playing? There you go. And
in fairness, at his age, if he just comes into a team without playing a single minute, that was exactly what you'd expect. Unbelievably though, Ipiaga was fantastic next to him.
Yeah, so was Norris. Yeah.
And
I enjoyed Sam Sarver as a wingback because he did something that no other wingback on this team can do, and that's build out and line break and have play passes going forward.
And the team went to shit when he got subbed off.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Okay, see, I saw you say this in your 3 things. And again, I didn't see the second half, but I was super frustrated by Sarver. Every time he got the ball, he had a ball played to him, and he would try to one-touch it, and he would blow it into the air and make a really difficult pass to receive for the next player. I thought he looked like a guy who was playing very much out of position.
Yeah, well, he got better. You need to watch the second half, Peter.
I said that. I admit that.
There was a much better balance. They took off Deedson, they brought on Johansson on the left, and you just had 2 pure pace wing backs. And there was suddenly that team was so much more balanced.
Yep.
Simmonds grew into the game. Moreno grew into the game.
Okay, maybe I need to go back and watch the second half.
You suddenly had outlet passes for both sides.
And Kai comes in and Kappas comes in, and all of a sudden now the combos are working, and the ball's going forward up the side. Like, it's not just hoof it, it's actually like a build out, and that was kind of exciting. Now, Sarver has a long way to go. It's not in terms of playing that role. Defensively, he has no idea what to do. If the defender on that side is a person that talks and communicates well, then he's better off. Like, because Ibby was over, when the times when Ibby was over there, it was better than when he had Abubakar flipped a lot, Ibby did. And when Abubakar was over there, it wasn't as good, but I'm not saying Sarver's going to be starting anytime soon, but I liked it as an experiment.
Okay.
As an idea. So that was fine. Benjamin, we learned, man, the energy is really high, but he doesn't know what to do.
Does that translate to turnover?
Yeah. I think what it translates to is that he was not playing at a level anywhere near this good in terms of the team. Again, these players that they get from these leagues like the Israeli league or whatever are just, sometimes they're just not up for the level that this league is at, Even
he may be a baller for North Texas.
Yeah. Well, he hadn't played at all. He's not playing for North Texas.
I know. I'm saying, just stick him down in another league and you'd see the difference between where his shortcomings are.
He'd be amazing. Even Johansson, who was one of the, league best kind of player for the league he came from, stepping up to this league is tougher, clearly, so some things that we knew. Delgado, spent the whole game playing high left wing, even though there's no high left wing in this formation. So
yeah, what was that all about?
I don't know. I don't know whether it's the language barrier or whether he just says, I don't give a crap. I'm gonna do what I want. He just spent the whole day.
Bojangles?
Could be the Bojangles. He spent the whole day camping out on top of the wing back, which is dumb. It opened up the middle, I guess. And he had like always, he had the one nice moment that required a world class save to keep it out. But like, other than that, he was junk for the rest of it. So like, nobody did anything really that like surprised us or made us think, oh my gosh, that guy needs to get in there. Like, just some nice glimpses from Simmonds, some nice glimpses from Sarver, and that was, Nolan played great. And then Moreno played great. And that was about it until they brought everybody in.
Yeah. I think the summation of what we've seen over the two games is that this team has the capacity to entertain and be interesting, but man, it is limited to making sure that they have very specific set of players out there, and B, it's largely dependent on who they're playing against. And that's kind of who they are, and that's what's going to keep them right around the Mendoza line through the rest of the season.
Yeah, and now maybe people have a better understanding for why Quill has such a short rotation. Like, a lot of these guys are probably ones that were saying, like, how come I'm not playing? Okay, now you see why you're not playing. You know what I mean? Like, that's all part of it. So
yeah, but see, here's the thing, and this gets into a much larger conversation about the Hunts' operation of how they choose to run this club with Zanotta kind of in the lead role, which is a lot of people are making a ton of noise in the last couple of weeks about how good San Jose is right now under Bruce Arena and how transformed that team looks under Bruce Arena. And make no mistake, there is zero chance Bruce Arena was ever coming to coach in Dallas, but he was available after they fired Nico. But the reason why is because he would require a level of control and say that they are not willing to give up, that they give to Zanotta. And so Quill is a guy who just kind of has to make the meal out of whatever ingredients are given to him. And Bruce is like, no, I will make the meal with the ingredients I go out and shop for myself. And that's why San Jose looks so good. They went out and got Timo Werner, for Christ's sake. So, and Bruce has got Timo Werner scoring, and that unto itself might be a Coach of the Year qualification right there. So,
Bruce has a very clear way he wants to play, and he goes out and gets the guys. He gets a bunch of dudes. It's not that they're not dudes,
but they're good players. They're experienced, good, known quantity players,
and they fit specifically the plan and what he's trying to do.
Agreed.
It's both the person getting the players and the person coaching the players has the same plan and the same idea, and it all fits together. And where we really clearly know here, the person getting all the players and the person coaching all the players are not on the same plan. The person getting the players just says, here's a pile of flexible players, do what you will. And then the coach has to try and figure it out, rather than saying, I'm going to be really, really, really good at this one thing, and you're going to have to deal with that, which is what Bruce does.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
100%. An interesting exercise for any of the curious out there that kind of really want to get their head right with what FC Dallas is just inside of Wikipedia, type in FC Dallas by season. And then you're going to get a Wikipedia page that has FC Dallas seasons, and you can click on seasons, and there's a graph that breaks out every season. It shows you their record. It shows you where they finished in the league. It shows you how they performed in the playoffs or if they qualified or not, and it shows you their U.S. Open Cup and Supporter Shield standing. Just roll down that list and start at about 2004, post when the Hunts got it, and just take a look for yourself and come to your own conclusion as to what this club is. And that's where it stands today. And I'm not saying that as a criticism. I'm just saying it as a fact of reality that this is who the club is and will probably continue to be for a while now. Yep. And I know that sounds like a bummer and I'm being a pessimist and all that stuff, but I'm trying to be real with everybody that when we have these games like this, it's going to be better. They'll probably make the playoffs, but that's what this team is.
Yeah. Well, when this team had more cohesion between the player acquisition and the team, we got runs under Colin Clark where he had built that team up to where 2005, 2006. I think it's 2006 is wire to wire first place. It might be 2005, but really good team. Right. And then they went to Morrow did not work out, but they went to Shellis. And he had his 2010 cup run, never a great team overall, but a really good defensive team in 2010. And he had his cup run. And then under Oscar, again, cohesion of player acquisition and style and what they want to do, back-to-back 60-point seasons. So for a long time, this team was generally speaking better than a lot of everybody else. They had the academy figured out. They did pretty good in the farm market with particular value players. When they had a DP, they were usually pretty good. They weren't crazy expensive. So things kind of worked. And they were on average better than most people. Current era, that's not working. Somehow or another, the focus has shifted to guys that we can buy low and sell high as the number one focus. That doesn't necessarily help you win. So there's a disconnect for me between the front office of trying to make money and trying to win. Coach is trying to win, front office is trying to make money. And that's why it's not as good as it used to be.
Yeah, it's the post 2016, which was clearly the pinnacle of the club when they won the double, as they call it. And we all felt like it was on the precipice of being a club that was going to be consistently a MLS contender for quite some time. And post that, they've missed the playoff 3 times. I think they've gotten past the first round of the playoffs twice in the 6 times they've been to the playoffs. I think it is. Yeah. In the Hunt era, they've only gotten past the quarterfinals twice. They made the semifinals once, and they made the MLS Cup and lost MLS Cup in 2010, and that's the extent of their playoff success.
Yeah.
Again, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to drag this into an overview of just how mediocre the club is, but when we see what's happened over the course of the last now, all the draws at home and they're dropping points at home, and we all know they got to collect points at home. It is what it is, and that's just the reality and the state of the team.
Yeah, since Oscar left and Clavijo passed away. Yeah,
I call it the Zanota era. I mean, it's Dan Hunt hiring Andre Zanotto to do all this work. And to be fair to him, he's done some good things. I mean, he brought Petar Musa in here. He signed a few really nice players, but he's also signed a lot of crap and a lot of players that just have completely failed to provide anything. But I do think, to your point, Buzz, the larger problem is that whatever Zanota is trying to do in terms of execute on a strategy feels very different from whoever of the 3 coaches he's hired to make lemonade out of his lemons.
Yeah, not to harp on the disconnect, but only once in that era have they finished above 6th place, and that was the first season on Nico when they were 3rd, when they had virtually no injuries and everything was magic that particular season.
Yeah,
it's all come down to earth since then. That's 2022. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Before we move on from Seattle, I want to point out, do you guys remember in the offseason when we were talking about the fact that Hassani Dotson was available and that I thought Dallas should go for him? And people said, well, where are you going to play that guy? And we talked about the idea of putting him in the central midfield and turning him into a 6 and that kind of thing. Well, he played in the double pivot for Seattle yesterday, and his line is amazing. He had 85 touches, which is a huge number, and passed at a 95% clip. And he had 12 defensive contributions, 7 of which were interceptions. 7 interceptions. And it was 5 of 8 on his ground duels. So he was phenomenal. So imagine if you had that kind of player performing with his kind of pace and range in the holding mid spot instead of perhaps like Ramiro. Might be pretty nice.
Yeah.
Just saying. You want a quick Sounders game in person review going to Seattle?
Well, yeah, I'm sure it was awesome.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was pretty cool. Well, Seattle's very walkable. There's not a lot of parking around the stadium. You got to find parking and then just sort of walk around. Lots of cool stuff down there. Stadium is humongous. It's way too big. I don't know how that team doesn't, other than the fact that, of course, it's basically free. I don't know how that team doesn't have their own stadium, but they had 20,000 people in there, and that was a small crowd for them. But it was fun. Almost everything around the game was first class, really well done. They had a band, and the band was like 50 people playing. It wasn't just like 3. So they played like before the game and after the game outside, like a marching band, and people gathered around and sang Seattle songs. I don't know what they were, but that was really cool. Just the whole presentation was really nice. It was well done. It was a good experience. Lots of fun. Lots of Seattle fans. Just like everywhere else, they don't know the rules either. So it's cool. There was a guy 2 rows in front of me that every time a Seattle player was on the ground, it doesn't matter why, if he tripped over the ball, if it was good contact, or if it was a foul, he jumped up and screamed foul really loud. It's like, dude, like only one of those 12 times you jumped up was it a foul. The other 12 were fine. Like I just tripped.
Well, with the losses and now leading into the next game, they got to come home and then travel to the other edge of the country, which is a lot of mileage and travel for one team in the course of a few days. Do we know the extent of Farrington's injury?
No, we don't.
We know not. Is it a lower body thing again?
It's a lower body injury. Yeah, pivotal lower body injury. I think they all are except for one.
So we have no idea if any of these guys are available this weekend.
Nope. I'm sure that's the point. Well, I mean, we know that Bernie is out a fair bit.
Right.
We know that Anderson Julio's out a fair bit. Both those guys we don't expect back for the World Cup. The fact with both Musa and Farrington were questionable means that, maybe they could have gone and they chose not to. Now, we have seen guys be questionable and the next week be out. That has happened. But, if things are going the way they're supposed to, from questionable, you become probable. So I'd like to think that both of those guys are going to potentially be available, a week later for New York. But it brings back in the problem of, if you're going to have Valiente and Ramiro, have 4 guys for 3 spots. I think with Romero being a DP and the fact he played really well against Seattle, I think you got to continue with that. And I really would like to see him with Farrington and Musa and see what happens. Like up until now, they kind of, if you assumed before Moreno got here that it was Farrington, Musa, and Valiente was the 10, then basically they took off Farrington and brought on Moreno. Well, okay, let's try it differently. Let's see if Musa, Farrington, and Moreno works, see how that goes. And then you just have the same decisions as always, which is your 3 guys for 2 spots in the midfield, Kappas, Kayik, and Ramiro. Kappas still fighting something, so maybe it'll be Ramiro and Kayik perhaps. That might be the most healthy version of that central midfield pairing. And then if presumably you're going to see Johansson and Moore continue as the 2 wing backs, and that leaves Ibeaga, Urguide, and Norris as your back 3. So there's not a lot of decision points. There's not a wing back that's actually pushing Moore or Johansson. There's no choice there. There's no center back that's pushing any one of the 3 center backs. The only way there's not is if you had a wing back and then Moore could be a center back, then you could talk about sitting Ibeaga, but you can't because Alvaro's apparently hurt and also stinks. And if you needed another center back, I'd tell you to bring up Slade Starnes over Alvaro, the way Slade's playing. So really you just have the 2 decision points, 3 of the front 4, and then the two of the 3 guys in central midfield, and that's it. That's the only changes that really are possible.
All right, so they go up to New Jersey. They face off against New York, who have only won 3 times this year, and they've only won once in. Let's see, good Lord, what is it's been a not a good run for New York of late, or New Jersey.
Well, they started the year pretty strong under Bradley.
Yeah, they've won once in their last.
Good, but
they've won once in their last 8. And they've lost 4 and tied 3, so they're not in the best. They lost to Cincinnati 2-0. They drew against DC, that same DC team, 4-4. And oh my gosh, they lost that horrible Montreal team 4-1. Goodness gracious! So Yeah. Dallas maybe got some maybe there's some reason to have some optimism going into New Jersey.
Yeah, particularly because you gave everyone a relative rest against Seattle. You now have a week basically to get super fresh and go up there, and I think you have a chance to get some points on the road.
Yeah.
It's not a given, obviously. You have to play the game. You can't just assume you're going to, but if you get the good road form version of FC Dallas, that's a winnable game.
All right. Just to get some more Dan in here. Dan, am I off target on my thoughts about the state of the team?
Nope, you hit you got it.
I thought you were going to object.
No.
Counterpoint me.
If only there was a counterpoint.
It goes back to the idea. I think I don't want people to assume that we're really sour on the team. It's a team that cannot afford to not be on. When they're on in all phases, they're pretty good and they can beat most people.
Yes,
but they're not always on. They're commonly not on. So it's like, if they get an 80% performance, that's not going to be good enough against a lot of MLS. If they get 100% performance, then it is good enough against everyone in MLS.
Right. So they are a mid-table team. They historically, in the Zanota era, are a mid-table team, and this is just the team that they've put on the table. It's just who they are, and they're going to win some games and they're going to lose some games, and they probably will make the playoffs and probably get knocked out in the first round.
Yeah,
and if they get lucky and get a team that they get the better part of, they get to the quarterfinal. We'll see what happens then.
Yeah, I would feel if Santiago Moreno can continue to progress and actually can become a contributor equivalent to like a Musa or Farrington, then you feel even more optimistic about climbing a bit, but you're not going to get into the top 2 or 3. It's just going to be maybe you're up like 5-6 rather than like 7-8 where you are right now.
Yeah.
I think it's just this is the valley after the peak, right? There were some people that were doing victory laps after the DC game because FC Dallas had won 3 out of 6 games. Against 2 of those against pretty poor Eastern Conference teams. Only 1 loss in that time. That's great. Since then, no wins in 4. You're going away. You're coming back to play RSL, then Vancouver, then you're heading off to San Jose that we've just spoke about as part of this 9-game. You're kind of just you're prepping for September, October. Well, I guess and the start of November to be hopefully the savior of the season. There's nothing to say that with that away schedule, the old summer swoon where FC Dallas would routinely go a month without scoring. I mean, it is a possibility, and that's not just on the players, the coaches, technical staff, whatever. That is, unfortunately the situation with that historically horrible away run due to the stadium.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is weird because this time a week ago, the team had only lost 1 game all season. Now we come back and they've doubled that. And now they're up to 3, but it is still only 3 losses. But the problem has been is they've dropped so many points through tying themselves to death.
Yeah, tie yourself right out of the playoffs.
Right, and that's the thing, and that's where it's at. So we'll hopefully, fingers crossed, whatever superstition you may carry, please execute it now on the health and well-being of Farrington, Musa, and anybody else that you're concerned about in terms of moving forward. And hopefully Uragide and Kappas and Kaik all are tanned, ready, and rested by Saturday. Hopefully so. All right. Very good. Anything else, Football Club Dallas, you would like to discuss?
I don't think so.
Okay. Explain to me how the MLS kit assigner decided to let that happen in Seattle what is going on? I am so confused about the rules around the kit assignments in Major League Soccer.
Well, there's no more prohibition against light versus light or dark versus dark. I imagine that
they've just forgotten all the colorblind rules and stuff too.
Well, that dark green probably is better for colorblind against the red than the light green is, because the light green versus the red really is a problem for people that are colorblind. Obviously that's a game where Dallas should have been in white against whichever color
Dishwater
wearing. Yeah.
Dallas
I
is
call it
dishwater.
dishwater, flake blue, whatever it is. Wash it with your new jeans, whatever it was. It's like, it wasn't ideal. So not a good kid matchup at all. On the other hand, the Minnesota one was great. I mean, that was a fabulous kid matchup. The Hoops versus the sky blue of Minnesota. So that was really good and then really bad. As good as it gets, as bad as it gets within 2-3 days. It's awful.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, so we'll talk once again next week after the trip to New Jersey. Moving on, let's figure out what else we've got to talk about. So I'm going to run to our new digital run sheet, and we're going to move on to North Texas, who also got poo-pooed this week.
Yeah, they they played the first ever home game this season at Minnesota for Minnesota. Minnesota had been on the road the whole season.
Why is that?
Cold, I guess. I don't know.
Where does Minnesota play their 2 games?
In their main stadium, which is weird that they.
Oh, they do. Okay.
Yeah. So there were like 5 people there. It looked like, although again, the people were all on the side of the field as the cameras. I don't know why it's not that hard to just have your crowd sit opposite your cameras at a game like that when there's like 100 people there. Just have them sit over there. It looks a lot better than it does when the place is empty completely.
Yeah.
But North Texas got a PK late and then didn't convert it. Natty James missed the PK, did a little stutter step thing, didn't really work very well, but they played okay. The problem is that for that team, when they're missing their best 4 or so players that are all the guys that are down from from FC Dallas. Caleb Swann was on the bench for FC Dallas. Nick Simmonds was starting for FC Dallas. Ricky Lewis was on the bench for FC Dallas and maybe hurt anyway. Alvaro was again neither place, so assume he's actually hurt as well. Not that Alvaro's being outplayed by Slade Starnes, so he's not really the one missing. But when you're missing your 2 of your most lethal attackers and you're missing your best central midfielder, it's not going really well. So they're struggling a bit because they're missing those pieces. And on top of that, our friend Diego Garcia, who everybody likes, is just not. It's not working. Like whatever he's doing is not going because he's not getting FC Dallas time, and maybe he's not really happy about being in North Texas again. Like he's broke the record. He's only 19 years old, but he broke the record for appearances for North Texas. That's not good. He's the quintessential example of a guy that needs to step in between. Maybe he needs a USL something because he's kind of just playing in the games of North Texas, and I don't know whether it looks that way because he doesn't care or because he just isn't good enough. One or the other, it's not working. So that's an issue.
Yeah, but I mean, you and I both, Buzz, the story of players who come up through the academy, get put into junior and fail to live up to their potential and not grab those games by the throat and boss around, they all end up being Thomas Roberts.
Yeah, in Garcia's case, for a couple of seasons, he dominated for that team and looked really, really good. And Quill talked about how much he liked him, and this would have been the year you would have thought he'd be getting on some benches and starting to get some minutes. But Caleb Swann's passed him quite clearly, and Garcia's just kind of biding time. It kind of looks like so he just needs something better than what he's got going on. And then other than that, like there's. The defense is pretty solid. Like this kid Biggar is a straight up left-footed center back at like 6'3". He's really coming into it and getting comfortable. I like the look of that kid. Slade Starnes is playing really, really well. Enzo Newman, bizarrely, has put on a lot of muscle, and it looks really stiff and not at all fluid, and they're making him play center back, which is weird. This sometimes happens when kids are out for like a year with an ACL. They can't get enough running in and they hit the weights way too much. And that's what it looks like to me. He's lost his flexibility. So that's bad in terms of a guy who came out of college as this flying outside player. On the other hand, I like the Jaden Contreras experiment at wingback, something I had been wanting to see. I think he's got a little potential. I want to see him be more impactful, but I really like what he's doing. But other than that, like Edu Nys is the one who's the real exciting playmaker, leading the league in scoring. He's the only guy in the front 5 that's really creating, and that's where they're missing Swann and where they're missing Lewis, where they're missing Simmonds. Those are problems. The guys that are filling in just aren't as good, and that's where they're kind of losing out on these games. And that's basically the state of North Texas right now. There's not much to add other than Zach Malomo finally got like 2 minutes. Not that he that's not nearly enough. He should have started every game last year instead of not playing at all. At left back, we know why that was. And then I was excited to see Liam Verostek finally make a bench for them, who's a 16 or 17-year-old player I really like, left back or left center back, who's going to be really, really talented eventually, was on the bench. And those were both really cool to see. So that's what it is.
All right. Well, let's move on to Pegasus, Buzz.
Yeah. If you watch this game, congratulations. You have now seen the worst television sports production that I have ever seen in my life. It was absolutely horrific.
I assume when Buzz watches this, he could not pay 1 second of attention to anything actually happening. All his professional broadcasting experience is just going haywire. It was pain.
So man, you give me 10 kids from the local high school audio video club, I can do better than this. This was so bad.
Are they just trying to computerize and AI all of this?
No.
Or do they have like 3 people trying to produce and direct all of the games at the same time?
I don't know. It was for one thing, it was torrential rain, which doesn't help. But there's some very simple things you can do to mitigate a lot of the problems. A lot of the problems were self-created because of the pieces of equipment they were using and where they chose to put them. They're trying to do this thing on such a shoestring budget that like half of the equipment is what we call it prosumer, which means like for you at home, it would be a high-end camcorder, but for television, it's junk, and it doesn't have the housing and the coverage and the flaps and the bags, and it's like the lenses are just soaked with water. Water's getting into the cables, and it's glitching, and it's like not only that, the people running the cameras don't know how to focus the camera. The main game camera was crooked, so it was running downhill left to where the FC Dallas goal was. It's like it was the worst. Cameras are whipping everywhere on air. Like you can't see it. It's like, it was the worst production I've ever seen in my life. And on top of that, they have this person doing color commentary who must be new because they're an ex Super League player. So they must have just quit playing. And it was some of the most valueless commentary. Like here's the open of the, I'm sorry to get on a soapbox. The open of the broadcast, they do a graphic. That's the 2 key players for Brooklyn. And the one on the left is their striker, and it says her name with her face, and it says 9 goals. And then under the girl on the right side of the screen, it has her name and her face, and it says 8 assists. And the play-by-play guy goes, oh, here's the 2 really key players for them up front. And the color commentator goes, yeah, so-and-so on the left, she scores a lot of goals. And the girl on the right, she gets a lot of assists. Yeah, thanks, Captain Obvious. It says goals and assists right there on the graphic. Please tell me why X player who's gone against them. And then they go, and here's Celie Strawn, who is just back from international duty. She's going to start as striker. Yeah, she's really young, but she's important. Thanks. That's some great commentary. You have really helped me understand. And the whole game was like that on top of like the worst technical collapse I've ever seen in my life.
Could Dan and I do a better job
commentating
an NWSL? I mean,
1,000%
USLSL game.
Yeah, this was the worst. You know, it just was so bad.
I'm offended you even asked that question.
Yeah.
Dan, do you want to do color or play-by-play?
He would be color for sure.
I'll be sideline.
Yeah.
Sideline.
One of the comments later in the game was, I think the rain might be a factor because the ball rolls differently when it's wet.
Oh, no.
So I'm like, are you
they really said that?
Yes, the color commentator really said that. I'm not going to say
because the ball rolls differently when it's wet.
Yeah, when the grass is wet, the ball is wet. So the rain might be a factor in why the passing is not great in this game. You think? You think it's possible the rain was a factor? This torrential downpour that we're witnessing.
That's awesome.
It was, and if it had just been the pictures, it still would have been the worst broadcast I've ever seen. Okay. The color commentator made it worse.
All right. I feel like I don't watch enough Trinity, but I feel like they're having a really, really bad season, but I see they're still in 4th place.
Yeah. Well, the problem is the 2 of the last 3 are at Brooklyn, and Trinity's game is width, big cotton bowl surface. They spread the lines really wide, and the 2 wingers like hug the line, and it opens up the middle, and it allows them to like get a little bit going through the middle, even though the middle is not great in terms of ball creation. Brooklyn is super, super narrow. Again, here was one of the comments. Boy, the field looks a little narrow. That might be a fact. You think? It's like 5 feet wide. So, like,
is it narrower than like the old San Jose field
it's like that.
NYCFC's field?
Yeah, like NYCFC. Yeah, it's a postage stamp. It's tiny. It's not as short maybe as NYCFC's was, where penalty box to penalty box is like 10 yards. It's not that. It's short. It's narrow. So like there's like 3 feet on either side of the penalty box basically that you can play. So don't get me started again, dude. It was awful. But
okay, I won't.
Trinity wants to use the wide spaces. They tried to train, as Dan told us last week, they tried to train in a narrow setup. So they was better, but they still like, if you take away their number one, just like FC Dallas, you take away their best game, you're going to be able to handle them. Basically, there are 3 good teams in this league and everybody else is just mediocre. And Dallas is the best of the mediocre teams unless the field is like 5 feet wide, and then they're not very good. So that was the big problem for them. And they only had like I think through like 70 minutes, there were like 4 combined shots in the whole game. It was awful. Awful game. It's not good for anybody. But Cameron Lancaster came in off the bench after they had allowed a goal. Cameron Lancaster came in and saved the day for Dallas and got them a point on a tie, which keeps them 1 point ahead of DC Power and in 4th place. And it won't matter anyway. They'll get smashed by who they play in the playoffs. But at least they're still in it. 3 games to go.
Dan, you want to comment? I mean, typically this is your wheelhouse.
I didn't watch the game, unfortunately. I actually haven't had a chance to watch a ton of Dallas Trinity this season, unfortunately. I've only been to 2 games since the winter break.
Well, they're leaving themselves some real work to be done, Trinity, is because 2 of their better players are Sealy Strawn and then today, Swann started in midfield. So they're starting 2 teenagers, both of whom will go to college. Swann's going to UT, and is Strawn going to North Carolina, Dan? Is that where she's going?
Yeah, UNC.
Yeah. So unless they're going to be able to sign them, which you probably can't, because those girls will probably get into some money at some point. So like those are 2 big holes they're going to have. Wisner's retiring. Ubagagu's 34, Dan. So that's, they're going to have some work to do in this next off season. They've also added some nice pieces. Steinbeck, who's on loan, looks good. Flynn in the back is a great addition, really good addition. Can play out of the back, really quality center back. So the Hamid on the wing looks legit. So, they've got some pieces, but they're going to have some work to do this winter in terms of not a full rebuild, but a little bit of a rebuild because of both the youth and the veteran that they're going to lose. That Wisner being the one that's the most important by far, the captain.
We don't have a lot. We don't have any Atletico Dallas or Rodeo or Fort Worth news because nothing really happened. Although I have one Atletico Dallas thing I'll throw in here a little bit later. But the reason why I bring all that up is that I have spent a little bit of time just kind of sampling NWSL games and USL SL stuff, Trinity in particular, but not like entire games, just kind of checking things out here and there, just kind of watching. And my general observation, which I think is somewhat relatable to whatever is going to happen with the guys' side of the USL in the introduction of the USL Premier and kind of the push of USL Championship when Atletico Dallas gets out, is that, man, the gap between the NWSL and the the USL Women's League is not insignificant.
It's huge.
It is a huge difference. And I think you don't even have to be a hardcore fan of the game to watch an NWSL game and then flip over to the USL stuff and go, whoa.
The analogy I make is it's the same gap here as MLS to MLS Next Pro. And that the second best teams in America are the second strings of the NWSL, basically.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And it does begin to kind of frame out what people should be setting their expectations for the early runs of USL Premier as it relates to Major League Soccer. But the question I keep asking myself is, can USL SL catch up to the NWSL? And should it? I mean, isn't there almost a better isn't it almost better for the game domestically if you have these kind of different tiers of quality so that players of different qualities can find opportunities to progress?
Yeah, the question will be in the long term is like Super League will need some time to consolidate and become stable, financially stable, right? Right now, the whole thing's kind of on a shoestring. So if they can do that, if they can solidify, then you would hope they can start to pay a little bit more and build themselves towards. I don't know that you'll ever catch NWSL and compete, but you can make yourselves a legit, like right there with them, because NWSL is talking about making a reserve league to be a real Division II. And that'll mean that they'll start to stockpile players, and they'll start to have, instead of loaning to
junior
Super
high
League
kids.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all works. But right now, I don't think the Super League has the money to try and climb and compete with NWSL. Not until they solidify and stabilize, and they'll need a little bit of a larger footprint as part of that. On the guy side, it's a good question. I mean, USL Championship is much closer to MLS than USL Super League is to NWSL. So it'll be interesting to see how the Division One USL fits in that space. Is it going to be all that much better than Championship, particularly if you have Pro Rel in that interior to that league? The best Championship teams might be right there with the bad Premier teams for USL. That may almost become like one level in a sense, with the division in it.
I think what I worry about when I think about how all of this is going to play out, and maybe this isn't the time to get into this discussion, which is because of how USL is structured, from the fact that everybody's kind of every man for themselves in terms of, you talk about getting the league getting stable. Well, the league can't get stable in the same way Major League Soccer got stable, or other professional leagues in the United States get stabilized, because there's revenue sharing. There is no revenue sharing going on in USL. And so it's like, not only do you have to be every man for yourself, you have to hope the other teams in your league figure it out, because you might be a absolute revenue machine, but if everybody else in the league sucks, you got to go find somewhere else to do your business.
Yeah. For context, that's what killed the North American Soccer League.
Exactly. Yes.
The Cosmos were a money-making machine with this roster of superstars that were making, crazy money. Everybody else was a $10,000 shoestring budget, no players operation. And it became one great team and a bunch of exhibition games, and it killed the league.
And I feel like that happened so long ago, nobody remembers it or even knows as to why, when everybody gets all excited about the USL thing, I just got 1,000 questions about how this is going to work based on the structure that I understand it to be today.
You know who remembered? The people that founded Major League Soccer.
Yes.
Which is why Major League Soccer is a single entity.
Yes.
And it's why it is so far financially surviving and successful, when nobody else has been successful here since 1910.
Yeah.
Because of this socialistic revenue sharing, which, by the way, the NFL has, and the NBA has, and MLS has.
Yes.
And USL does not.
100%. And even to a degree, it happens in England in that pyramid. I mean, there's all kinds of revenue sharing going on and trickling down from the Premier League, and they're trying to renegotiate that deal now as we speak. So there's all kinds of that stuff going on. And that's the reason why when I watch the USL SL, I wonder to myself, man, how long can this league sustain with this level of quality and ever find its way to trying to catch up or even getting closer to the NWSL?
Yeah.
And maybe it shouldn't. I recognize that in the eyes of the federation, they are an equal standing. They're both Division I leagues, but I mean, it's like 1A and 1Q.
Well, keep in mind, this, Peter, the Division Oneness in the United States is a technicality.
Yes, 100%.
Based on certain metrics that you have to meet. And if you meet it, you meet it. It's like US soccer doesn't govern the pyramid here, right? All they do is say, if you meet these requirements, you're Division I. If you meet these requirements, you're Division II. Like, they don't tell people there's only one Division I. So it's, it's a different kind of world than lots of other countries are. And you're totally right that the viability of this league remains in massive question. The USL Super League in particular, it'll come, is what we're talking about. It'll come down to like the owner's willingness to float this whole thing as they try and get their feet underneath them. The 10 years that NWSL Head Start has, the 10 years it took MLS to get stabilized, and they had to go through that chop where they cut teams and trimmed it down to 3 owners before they could really even get going and survive. So I think it'll be a decade before we know for sure whether the Super League is going to make it.
Boy, howdy. I'm going to get some emails. All right. Well, anything else we need to discuss?
I got one more thing.
Well, one more thing.
I got the Liga MX leaving the Mexican Federation.
Yes, I saw this.
Which reminded me only in the vaguest sense, I don't know the internal metrics of the Premier League splitting off from the FA, right? But also those guys going independent and pulling in Atlanta, who's a more valuable team, having their own commissioner, certainly seems like a step. Getting rid of relegation seems like a step that has to happen if you're going to merge with MLS. So those are the two things I thought of when I saw that. I was like, oh, like the Premier League, and also here we go. We're a decade away from a merger.
Yeah. There are all kinds of people across the globe that hate MLS for its structure, but man, there's a whole other slice of pie called owners across the globe that think that's a really nifty business model, because look at the values of all these MLS teams that have only been around for 15 to 30 years, and they're already far exceeding all these clubs that have been around for 100 years, 150 years or whatever,
because they can't be relegated.
Well, right. It's more than
it's
that.
Not the TV money.
No, but yes, the relegation piece of it is absolutely a factor, but there's a lot of other parts to it too, in terms of how organized they are in terms of revenue sharing and sponsorship skill sets and cutting deals to bring in revenue. I mean, clearly that is working very, very well for the league. Much to
a lot of NFL owners here that know how to make money.
Exactly.
100%.
Yeah,
in a weird way, you could thank Jerry Jones for MLS, because Jerry Jones is the one that changed the NFL and taught people how to revenue beyond just the bonkers revenue. And then those guys have now brought that, the ones that are in MLS have now brought that to MLS. And those teams, even though the money's not huge here, the revenue is massive for these MLS teams. If they know what they're doing, the guys know what they're doing.
All right, Dan, how's we need an update from the Husky Hive.
League season finishes tomorrow.
Are you going to do it?
No, technically it would. I think if we won something stupid like 12-0, we could win one of the leagues, but that's not likely.
Okay. How are you? Okay, I guess you want any other updates to how the team's doing, both on the scoreboard and on the scale? Because that's the whole point to man versus fat.
Yeah, looking good. I scored a really fun little goal in the week. That was about it.
Okay, I love it. Well, better luck next season.
Thanks. They do a funky thing, and every third season they redraft all the teams, so it's going to be fun to see how that shakes out.
You'll be in high demand, no doubt.
We'll see. One thing, in the week, it came out that George Lay, who played for the Dallas Tornado for 5 years in the 70s, had passed away. He was weirdly. He played for Luton. He coached Luton. I actually met him over in England, despite the fact that I lived in Dallas and he lived in Austin at the time. Really, really lovely fella. Had some great stories of Lamar Hunt being cheap. And
what? No way. Can't be true.
God, if the Hunt family is cheap in the 2020s, could you imagine how effing cheap they were in the 70s?
Well, he told me obviously, the players are all in NASL at the time playing like second seasons for extra income. And, a lot of guys from England and Scotland, they're going out together to shows and stuff. They're like, they're parking at the far away parking lot, and then they see Lamar walk past from like street parking. This multi-billionaire.
Lamar was great. Lamar was the everyman who just happened to have $1 billion.
Yeah.
And that's why.
That's right. Exactly.
That's not why.
That's why he kept.
That's why he kept the $1 billion. Right. That's not why he has $1 billion.
Correct. Yes.
But George Lowe passed away at 80 in the week. Part of like Portsmouth's Hall of Fame. He was the semi-pro team I worked at, Dunstable Town. He and his brother Tony played for back in the day. That's actually where I bumped into him, wearing an FC Dallas t-shirt with a discussion of like, what? How? I used to play there. And a big part of the youth soccer community in Austin, Round Rock. He was on the Austin. There was a Texans club he coached at, and the Austin Soccadillos indoor team, I think, as well.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Dan. The tornado were a big part of Buzz and I's Ute.
Yep.
Those were the
For
days. There's over at Spectrum on Tuesday nights where in one of my beer leagues, there's a younger age group team that wears tornado kits.
Nice.
Buzz.
That's so cool.
They're sweet too. And they call themselves Tornado.
Every once in a while, I wish that had been the rebrand in 2004 for the FC Dallas.
We all have a lot of regrets about 2004.
I know.
All right. Very good.
Jump the charm, Peter. Go for it.
Here we go. Dan, dismount attempt number 3.
Yeah.
Dan, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, I got nothing. Just skip straight past me.
All right. Very good. Buzz, good to see you from afar, my friend. Glad you had a good time at the game. Got to do that.
It was fun. Vancouver's next.
Oh, are you going to go to that?
Hopefully. Or Portland.
I can't wait until we get like a Canadian Premier League walkabout.
Yeah, how is your walkabout going to change every now that you're living up there? Where you
I
just
don't know.
Travel down here?
Well, I'm gonna go to Alaska. I'm drive to Alaska one of these days, but and back. But I have to figure out like what's a good time to drive down to Texas and like see family and stuff. And it may be just like the holidays or something. But
like the reverse walkabout?
Yeah, reverse walkabout kind of maybe.
Okay.
Not coming in August when it's 1,000 degrees, but come in the winter when it's actually nice. It'll be warm compared to up here, and then I can come down like I gotta figure it out. It's a work in progress.
You'll migrate like birds down here?
Yep.
Okay. Very good. All right, buddy. Good seeing you again.
Thanks, man.
And thank you, DFW Soccer Curious. Oh, I'm ruining the dismount. Atletico Dallas published a video this week. Everybody should go check it out on their YouTube page. It's about Dallas in the 80s, and they asked me to do an interview.
90s.
I mean the 90s, not the 80s, the 90s.
That's really awkward that you were talking about the 80s in a video about the 90s.
Yeah, right, exactly. That's and they've got me and some other guys in it. You should go check it out. If you care about Dallas in the 90s, it's interesting. So there you go. That's all.
Okay, 4th time's the charm, Peter. This time for sure.
Dan, thank you. Buzz, thank you. DFW Curious, thank you. We will speak to you next week on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
But wait, there's more.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.